Great. Great. Hi, everyone. On behalf of the Meraki Dignity Project, it is really my great pleasure to welcome Lulu Wang. Um,
Wang.
Lulu Wang, sorry, Lulu. Of course. She is investor extraordinaire. She's a philanthropist, a remarkable advocate and mentor to women. And I'll just put a little note in here. Early in my Wall Street career, there were very, very few women whose leadership we could look to, and Lulu was one of them. I remember quietly thinking when she was across the table from me, that's the kind of leader I hope to become.
Thank you.
So you're welcome. We are looking forward today to a conversation about a bunch of things. We don't actually know where this will all go, but we think, speaking of extraordinary, this is an extraordinary moment in AI, and what it means for women's voices and leadership and how we're shaping it. And I'm delighted to have my Meraki collaborator here with me, Kate Lilienthal, to join me in the conversation. So Lulu, I'm going to hand it over to Kate and we'll get started.
Thank you.
Lulu, we had the benefit of talking to you a moment ago, and you gave us some context for where we are with AI and what that means for women. Would you mind repeating that for our audience?
Well, thank you, Kate and Stephanie. It's great to be with you both today. I think we were saying that we are at a moment that's truly historic. We know that, but it is historic in that it has the power to be uh, a beginning of great good or great destruction. And we really need to make sure that with women at the table, it happens to be a powerful force for good. And we can harness that force to make our lives better, healthier, more equitable, and at the same time, more successful. Because I think bringing women into any situation guarantees success. You need to have the input that women bring of their uh, their positive aspect, their ability to work together and collaborate, and this is what the world needs more of. And so I think um, technology is moving very quickly, but I'm trying to make friends with as many women who are knowledgeable, who are not afraid to speak up, who understand how to take science and blend it with humanistic values and create a force that will truly be good for as many people as possible.
Love that. You know,
Me too. Go ahead. Sorry,
did
Stephanie.
you
Go
want
ahead.
to say something, Kate?
No, no, I
I,
can't help it. I'm a talker.
I think what you said about humanizing, maybe we can, one of the things we've been talking about the Meraki Dignity Project is womenizing AI or really
Mhm.
thinking about it through a women's lens. So we completely agree with you on humanizing, but maybe we can talk to you a little bit about how we may think about ways to the models are being trained or can be trained
Mhm.
to work with women differently than from men, and just your perspective on that.
Well, I think the models are already beginning to do that in a very savvy way. The models can be trained to work with women, with the elderly, with children. It's you're seeing this be happening in healthcare and marketing. So the technology has already arrived there. But I think we need to make it authentic because I've seen AI that has been supposedly targeted to the children's market, and it doesn't come across authentic. And kids and we women are quite good at spotting something that's smarmy, is trying to manipulate us, trying to get us to part with our dollars, but it's not authentic. So you need to have women involved in that. And this is big dollars, it's big marketing. If you are trying to develop marketing programs that are not authentic, you're wasting a lot of money. So you want to go, women are a vast part of the consumer base. We're incredibly big part of the saving base, and we will be the largest part of the asset base as we outlive men and we have our own incomes. So it makes good business sense to engage women, but at the same time, it makes sense in a humanistic way because women um, are understand the value of life. They've always been against wars, generally speaking, and I think their success is built on win-wins rather than uh, beggar thy neighbor. And I think that's so important to think holistically about what's good for the world, not just this country or that society or that gender. So I think we are in a position to really help to move AI and this brave new world forward. in a way that will be much more collectively beneficial.
I love that, Lulu, and I think one of the things I'm really intrigued by your win-win because even amongst ourselves and in a lot of the conversations we've been having, we've been talking about dignity as a win-win and
Mhm.
really thinking about, and a lot of the characteristics that you just described are kind of similar to those that revolve around dignity, which is really kind of honoring people and thinking about it as something that we
Mhm.
all win. So love that. I don't know, Kate, if
Well,
you wanted to chime in, I saw you leaning in there.
Oh, well, I actually wanted to key off of something you said, Lulu. I agree with Stephanie. That is what we're trying to do. And I think it's what you're saying is imbuing our world with more dignity and taking this moment in AI to use AI towards that. Um, from a practical standpoint, moving AI into this brave new world that better serves women and other demographics, how? How do we do that from a practical standpoint? Is it getting more women into
mm,
engineering? Is it, what is it? You know, we have all these
so many
apps now,
different
like,
ways. Well, one,
yes.
I think, of course, you want to be as inclusive as possible, but I think I had this conversation with Hillary Clinton back in November. She and I were doing a fireside chat, and she was talking about how women rose to really influence at the Beijing Conference for Women 30 years ago, 50 years ago, 30 years ago, and on how it's beginning to slip. And
Mhm.
I said, well, Hillary, rather than bemoaning what we've lost in the last few years, let's talk about how we build on what we had then and then take it forward. And I think the we need to find solutions rather than bemoan. And I think one of the solutions is how we can affect programs that will have broad support. And my view is that being successful, making money, is preferred by all parties, political, social. And I think if we can develop programs that have positive ROIs, we cannot help but win support, even from people who may differ with us on principle and other bases. So I think um, having women in business makes sense because women are one part of the huge marketplace, but also women have that positive aspect that immediately goes to problem solving, immediately goes to the win-win so that you win over your opposition and don't waste money on adversarial behavior, but use your energies to build collaboration and allies. And I'll give you an example in business. Stephanie, when we were in Wall Street, it was a dog eat dog world. And if you're a woman and you were doing really well, eventually you had lots of men underneath you. And men didn't in those days didn't like working for women, especially if she was younger. And
Mhm.
her being smarter made it even worse for them. So what I would do if I were working with older men, I would, instead of making them feel that I was the devil incarnate, I would become their friend. I would just say, here's the objective we all have as a team. But I think you have a very important role because you have this talent, that talent. Let's work on your contribution to the team. And together we can be successful. So you make it into a win even for your someone who may view you as an adversary or competition, but his success will be joined with your success and then that of the team. And I found it worked really well, and it made it more fun. It's more fun to work with people who like you, who aren't trying to stab you in the back. And this
Mhm.
can happen even in wartime. Every war, most wars could have been stopped if one party reached across and said, if we work together, we'll all be more prosperous and we'll save our sons and daughters. So look for the situation that has collective positive outcome and has collective financial returns that are positive for everyone. So it can apply to the not for profit, for the business, in all kinds of difficult endeavors.
Mhm. Mhm.
I go ahead, Kate. I don't,
No,
are
no,
you?
you go ahead.
So one of the things you just sparked a thought for me, Lulu, around this idea of power and just how do we, as women and men collectively. I love your thinking that it is not just women alone. It is really about all of us kind of moving and
Mm-hmm.
growing in the same direction, for lack of a better analogy. And power really is about, we have something that others want, and the recognition of how we shift that.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe just opine, or just your thoughts about what are some of the aspects of power that we as women have. I think you started to talk about a little bit about the wealth transfer and some of the things that are going on,
Mm-hmm.
that gives women the opportunity to be heard. Maybe just your thoughts about how we may think about shifting that power collectively to really start to shift the way we think about um, equity and dignity in this brave new world.
All right. Well, power, it can be defined in so many different ways. And for me, power is the power to do good. And if we can persuade everyone else to think that power is a responsibility to do good, then we have a very different focus on how we use power, why we want to achieve power, and how we keep power. And again, it's always a greater good. And if that is always the focus, I think even uh, in fields where men have been so dominant and reluctant to share power, if you can show them that by sharing power, by bringing women or diverse people into the power base with them, it really benefits their business. And I'll give you an example. Private equity has been an area that's been very difficult for women to crack, and it's been the old boys club forever. And I've found, I've also counseled some private equity people that if you have um, really smart women on your team, don't keep them in the back office. Bring them out because they often have that ability to develop the relationship that is so essential in keeping the client happy. And it's not just social talk, but I found many times private equity clients or portfolio companies who are starting to doubt whether they want to go with this private equity firm or that, or whether they're content that things are being done for their best interest. If they meet with one of the women on the team who is smart but really is empathetic, makes them confident that this is the home where they want to be and where their company will do the best, it really enhances that relationship between the private equity firm and the portfolio company. And the same thing in publicly traded securities. I sit on a number of investment committees for my endowments, and I've I've never wanted to tell our money managers who to hire, but I find that if I share with them our institution, whether it's a university or a museum, that our values are for inclusion because it gives us better returns. So again, you
Mm.
tie that into ROI with what's doing good for everybody. And very quickly they begin to get it. And the next time you see them, they have a smart woman in the presenting team. And in the end, they're happy, the client's happy, the results are better. And it just shows that if you do the right thing, often, um, and you use your power well, it can lead to good results.
Mm.
Fantastic.
You're nodding, Stefan. You know exactly what I mean.
I'm smiling because I mean I guess we there's so much. This is a whole different conversation. This is a whole additional conversation, Lulu, around just changing the seats around the table. But I did want to maybe shift to I agree, maybe on a more practical note, or maybe just something that our listeners would love to hear. Um, would you mind sharing which large language models you tend to use, or you like to use, or you find yourself using, and maybe maybe start there, and we can ask a couple more
Well,
questions before
to
you're on.
clarify, I particularly would like to associate with high tech people because I know I'm not a techie. I'm a consumer of I use ChatGPT and the later models, and I find it's a great resource. It's very efficient. I also know it can be flawed, but I leave the design of the models to people who are much more effective at it than that. But I do appreciate the value of it. Having been on Wall Street, instead of putting calls to two or three experts on the street on a stock or industry, I can pull up information on my chat GPT and very quickly have it spit out to me. And I always ask for the short form in quick form because then I can make my own decisions very quickly. And something, if it doesn't sound right, I can immediately dismiss it, go on to something else. So I don't take my time reading the in-depth analysis, which I end up doing myself anyway. but it's the calling. This is very typical where I don't think humans will ever be obsolete because I use ChatGPT as really just a gathering of information for me, and I make the decision. And I think, end of the day, women and people who are really good human minds, critical thinkers, people who can think out of the box, which seems trite, but I always tell young people whenever you see a situation, don't say, oh, that's good or bad. Just say, what is really, how can it be improved? Always bring in that human element. How can the dots be connected better or in a more creative way? Everyone knows the dots, it's all analyzable. But how you connect them, how you sequence them, is the human element that will always be setting the really great um, performers apart from the more mediocre ones. So I really think that as our alma mater, Wellesley College, does, building a very strong liberal arts background, the ability to think across disciplines, to think across time, is really important. And the more we progress with AI, the more I hear senior corporate leaders saying, we want to get some really bright young people who can think out of the box. We know the box now, we know how the box works, but to get young people who can come and say, something's wrong with this box. Here's how I can make it better for you. And I think this is really going to be great for educators. They'll be thrilled to educate young people who will be original thinkers, and it'll take some of the grunt work out of taking notes and just copying stuff, but to bring a curious, a probing, critical analysis to any situation, it's going to be value added to any company.
Stephanie, may I ask a question?
Please go ahead.
Okay, I wanted to back up a tiny bit in this last section, Lulu, when you were mentioning um, the benefits of AI and how you use it yourself.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Most of AI is being trained by men. So you're looking at how to approach life in a win-win capacity.
Mm-hmm.
Do you find that AI supports that, or do you find that it's the information that you get back or the way that it skews things is designed to be a little bit more competitive and less of that let's share the bounty approach that you're looking for? It's a very abstract question.
Uh,
I'm trying to get at what are we at risk of losing by not having more women at the table in AI?
well, I think the best AI models are built on the algorithms, but it also has to be at the intersection of the algorithms with psychological analysis, with uh, the getting at the human input. It's so the
Hmm.
evaluative element, the interpretive element, the
Hmm.
historic element, the the future looking element. And these are all things that make the model much more effective. And if you if you relegate it to just the left brain thinking, and you don't take in the richness of the right brain thinking, the models will be
Hmm.
hollow. And I
Hmm.
think this is what women really bring. I mean, we all know that linear thinking comes from the left brain, and the left brain is more associated with male behavior, and the female behavior is more with the right brain. But more so than just the right brain. I love neuroscience. I spend a lot of time on it. But the human brain has the cord in between the left and right brain, and the traffic on that cord is far more active. And this is all documented within women. And so that ability to use both the left and right brain and to be agile there gives women some real advantages. That's why Steph and I always encourage women to go into investments. I think it's a shoe-in for women because to think apart from what is linearly out there is really
Hmm.
what gives you the edge in investing. To think before the crowd and to think qualitative is very important to on top of the quantitative analysis. And whether you're doing marketing or you're planning statecraft or you're creating your strategies for war, if you are able to think beyond what the sheer linear thinking is providing, you really have the winning hand.
So what you're saying, which is super interesting,
Mhm.
is that if we can get more of that nonlinear thinking into our large language models, which we associate with women,
Mhm.
that type style of thinking, we will all be the better for it. And that is a huge idea.
Oh, it's very important. I find one of the some of the top women in AI are talking about integrating those algorithms with behavioral science, and they tend to be some of them are neuroscientists, some of them are social scientists, some of them teach in business schools, some of them teach in engineering schools. But I think that the intersection of these disciplines is what will give you the most successful and the richest models.
Fabulous. I think, Stephanie, that's a good place to end this part of the conversation. We just have one more small question, which you go ahead and ask.
Well, thank you, Lulu. I think where we'd like to go and close our conversation, which has been so provocative and interesting, at Meraki, we often talk about this idea of immersing yourself fully into something, and we say with creativity, soul, and love. And I guess we're curious if you'd be willing to share what brings you Meraki in your own life and work.
Well, it's interesting because I was talking to one of my wealthy classmates, Dinah Chapman Walsh, who was our president for a number of years and a very close friend and classmate. And we just crossed into a new decade, and we said, okay, so what are we going to do now? And I said, well, Dinah, I think I've lived my life at such a hyper speed that I would like to take the last part of my life, this last third of my life, and um, using a gardener's uh, term because I'm a gardener, repot myself. And instead of instead of being a lawn, I want to be a beautiful plant in a much smaller pot, but much deeper. I want to take the time
Oh,
to really limit the size of my pot, but make it very deep, so I can go back and savor all the things that I've kind of raced through and really savor them and think deeply about them and focus on the most meaningful things for myself and my loved ones and maybe for the greater good.
Wow, thank you. Thank you, Lulu. That brings me such great joy, and it's so inspiring on behalf of all of us. Thank you. Thanks for
Well,
sharing.
thank you. Wonderful conversation. I really enjoyed it. Nice to meet you, Kate. Good to
nice to
see you,
meet you.
Stephanie. Bye bye.